Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Eyana. I'm a senior biology and chemistry major, and I also am a pre-med. So right now what we're going to talk about is the 5 things that I regret not doing or doing my freshman year as a pre-med student. I tried to jump into research my first semester and it was completely a big mistake. And luckily I had the Center for Undergraduate Research to kind of guide me into saying, hey, you don't want to do that. You just came here. For me, this was the first time that I'd been in a city that didn't have anybody that I knew, and I was also the only person who came from my high school. So I didn't know what everything was. I was just getting used to not having parents around to tell me what I need to do, and like I'm losing the regime that I had since elementary school, where you wake up at 7 o'clock and you're in school until 3, and college isn't like that. You choose your own schedule, you have free periods, you can hang out with friends. So the next thing that I want to address is I tried to join all of the clubs because as a pre-med I was like, I need to do everything I can to get my CV up. That way I'm just so flawless, and the med schools will just love me. It's anything but the truth. So your freshman year, at least for the first semester, what you need to understand is that this is, again, I say this is new. You're in a new town, maybe you're still living with your parents, but you're still having a little bit more freedom than you used to. And I joined a whole bunch of clubs, went to all of the meetings, and I was overwhelmed. And I started seeing decreases in my quiz grades. None of my tests, because I always kind of buckled down, but I was also thankful to have friends who were in similar majors as me, and they would knock on my door and keep me accountable. And we would always go to the study halls, what are they called? The study rooms, and write out on the dry erase walls and make sure that we're always consistently keeping up with our work. So while I had that, I also had to trim down all of my commitments, and I think that was the biggest thing, that was the best thing that I could have done at that time, because I got to focus on more clubs like MAPS, which is the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students, and just focusing on that club and being in the honors program, I was able to do things that I didn't get opportunities that I normally wouldn't have. So had I spread myself too thin, I wouldn't have been able to probably go to the mentor swap, where we got a med student who was there to mentor us. And my med student, particularly, she was the head of a panel for the Igniting the Dream conference, and she put me on as a panelist, and that's something that I would have never been able to do had I not trimmed down on my priorities. And I think that's a bigger resume booster than adding that I was in biology club. So keep in mind that when you first get here, you want to make sure that you want to trim down on all of your commitments, because you still have to study and you still have to try to get in the stream of things so that you're not overwhelming yourself. So on the flip side of that, you also want to make sure that you spend some time getting your volunteer hours as well as your shadow hours. One thing that I really regret is not taking advantage of my time on the weekends when the clubs had activities and they were volunteering to just help pick up trash around the city or whatever. There was a lot of things that were going on and a lot of opportunities that I had, and I just didn't take them. And I think that's one thing that I regret the most, because our campus actually has a lot of volunteering clubs. They also have clubs that help you get connected with doctors so that you can shadow. Being that we're trying to be a research university and also we're connected to the Medical College of Georgia, there's a lot of pre-meds that come to our college. and they're looking for these resources, and there are students who've delivered in that. So I really wish that I would have paid more attention, took more opportunities to volunteer and shadow. I don't have to work as hard to get enough hours as if I would have started, when I was a freshman. Alright, you guys, my video cut off, and I'm so sorry for my glasses glare. Can't help it. I need them to see. If you're a part of a group or just like in a tutor room and you just see some seniors there, don't be afraid to ask them questions, because I promise you they will give you gold. They will give you gold, just like I'm giving you guys gold, and I give all of the incoming freshmen gold. A good example of this is when I was a freshman, I finally got up the courage to ask for a mechanic, because my car's AC started leaking and then it wasn't getting cold. And I don't know if you guys have seen my videos, but I got a whoopty, so I always have to have a mechanic in whatever city that I'm in. So I asked this one senior for a mechanic. She recommended somebody that was reasonably priced. They do great work. And turns out that my air conditioner blew out 3 different times, and they fixed it. After I paid the first initial time, they fixed it for free, other than maybe some parts that they had to order. And it was because, I wouldn't have had such a quality mechanic had it not been for me reaching out to these seniors. And now I just, looking back at it, I regret it, because they could have stopped me from making this my biggest regret of my freshman year. So now we're going to go into my 5th and my biggest regret of my freshman year. And it takes a little bit of explanation, but I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how my school does the biology track, the cell and molecular track. So the way that they do us, the advising center, we have an advising center separate. So for the first 2 years of pre-med, if you're pre-med, you get a couple of advisors split between what your last name is. And they make your first schedule for you. And they ask if you want any changes done. And if you're a pre-med like me, you're gonna want to have this change unless you think it's too much for you. So going in, I had already gone through my blimp of, well, is this the right career for me? And I was solidified. I changed everything. That'll be in another story time or another sit down later. But I just want you guys to know that I already knew, and I had solidified that this is the career path for me. And so they put me in one biology, and it's fine, but the reason why it messed me up so much is because chemistry, it works very well that you do chemistry fall, spring, fall, spring, fall, spring. That way you're completed with all of your biochems before you take the MCAT. My school doesn't do that, because they think that putting a biology 1101 class and a chem 1111 class, I think, that putting freshmen in both of those classes, both of them are considered weeder classes, but putting freshmen into those classes will set them up for failure. But if you know that this is the path that you're going to go on, you know that this is also you understand the workload that it takes to get there. And I think the biggest, my biggest regret was telling them no, or not catching up with summer classes. So the way that they had me doing it, I had Chem 1 in the spring, Chem 2 in the fall. I had a whole summer between Chem 1 and Chem 2, and I was completely I lost some of what I had learned in Chem 1. And as a result, I didn't get as good of a grade as I wanted to. What makes matters worse, at my school, we get tested in the second chem. You have to take a ACS test, which is the American Chemical Society test. You have to pull everything from Chem 1 as well as Chem 2 in order to take this class and pass Chem 2. So the biggest, like, it comes and bites you in the butt again, that you've lost all this, you've had a lot of time to lose this information over the summer. And I think that's the biggest, like, I think one of the downfalls, that they set the biology majors up for failure like that. Or at least the cell and molecular majors up for failure like that. And so you go on, you have OChem 1 in the spring, you have OChem 2 in the fall, and you have the choice at this point to either put Biochem 1 in the spring, or and then have to take Biochem 2 next spring, because Biochem 2 is the only 4,000 level class, or it's not the only 4,000 level class, but Biochem 2 is the only chemistry that's not offered every single semester. It's only offered every single spring. So if you're taking Biochem 1 in the spring, you have to wait an entire year to take Biochem 2, which Biochem 2 you don't technically need for the MCAT, but still, if that's a part of your major, that's major retention. Like, you're losing a lot of information in that year. So just going over a little bit of pre-med outline. So you want to make sure that you take biochem before the summer of your junior year, because that's traditionally where pre-meds take their MCAT. And that's also when you're starting to build your application for med school. I did not follow that, and we can talk about that when I share with you guys why I have to retake the MCAT and kind of my downfalls there, so you guys don't make the same mistakes. But my biggest regret is not catching up in the summer for OChem or just GenChem 2, because it really threw me off when I took my MCAT, because I did not take biochem before I took my MCAT. So just in summary of all my points, first, you want to make sure that you don't jump into research your first semester. Ultimately, you're not going to be able to commit the right amount of time and focus, and you also haven't had a lot of prereqs that may be important for kind of the lab work you are. And some professors understand that, and they'll still take you as a second semester freshman, but first semester freshman, please don't push it. Just get used to your environment. And even second semester freshman is still pushing it a little bit. And I'm so thankful to the Center of Undergraduate Research that we had at my school to tell me to chill out. If you still just really want to get into research, go to the seminars. I'm sure your campus has some where you'll see seniors presenting their work, and that in and of itself is invaluable. And you can ask these seniors, again, goes back to my fourth point, ask these seniors how they got into research, how they knew that they wanted to do research, because research, it isn't required. Just make sure that you don't jump into research too soon. You get used to your environment. Number two, with that being said, do not overfill your plate. Focus on clubs that you really think are going to benefit you. And if you think you can take on more, do it the next semester. Don't do it in the same semester. And that goes for, like, if you're joining a sorority, that should be your only thing, because you have to pledge, you have to go through all of the stuff. So if, like I said, don't spread yourself too thin, because putting your efforts into the clubs that you really believe in, it will come and it will reward you like it did for me. All right, you guys. So the third thing is you want to make sure that you reach out and you volunteer and you shadow. I regretted not doing this. It's not that I didn't have the opportunities, because a lot of the time the clubs that I was in, they made sure that that was a part of their mission, and some of them were pre-med clubs and some of them were just other clubs. And you want to make sure that you give back to your community, because this is your new community. This is where you live now. My fourth regret is that I didn't talk to the seniors. And this goes back to the third tip. The clubs that you do join, they're going to have people of different classes, different majors, and there's bound to be another person who's in your same major, who's older, who's been experienced. And because you guys have a commonality, that's a great way to start off a conversation, to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Do you have any advice that you wish you would have known when you were a freshman? Just make sure that you make connections. So with that being said, make sure you talk to these seniors. They will give you a lot of information. I want to make sure that you are as successful as you can be, at least at my school, and just successful as you can be, as well as just being a pre-med, and making sure that there's a lot of collaboration between all of our efforts so that you don't have to go through the same struggles that I have. My main goal is to make sure that it's easier for the next person. My fifth and final regret is that I didn't fix my schedule to take Chem 2 or OChem 2 over the summer so that I could have taken both of my biochems before my MCAT. So this also kind of boils down to me regretting completely and solely trusting my advisor and not doing my own research. You're the one that's paying the tuition. So it's also your responsibility to take care of your education. If you think your advisor is suggesting the wrong class, then you can tell them that. Tell them that you want to add a class, and just take a lot of their advice, sometimes with a grain of salt when you have a bad advisor. Very crucial. And you got to make sure that you take care of your track sheet and you pay attention to your track sheet, because that'll tell you when you're about to graduate. My advisor, when I finally got placed into a biology professor, basically told me that I was ready to graduate in the fall, and I had already known this information. And he was just like, oh, I just realized that if you just rearrange some classes here, you can graduate in the fall if you really want to. And I was like, I understand that. I've known this for a while. And he kind of makes fun of me every time I go. He's just like, oh,
this is the girl who has 3 semesters already planned out. She has all of her time planned out, and that's supposed to be my job. I don't need, like, you're basically doing my job for me. And I was like,
well, I'm paying the tuition here. I'm making sure that I'm getting the degrees that I want, and I'm getting the most out of my education, because the money that we spend for this, you need to take responsibility for your education. You can't just let other people do it for you. Otherwise, you're going to be passive in your education, and you're not going to feel fulfilled when you look back at your college years, because you feel like, oh, well, I could have done this, I could have done that, had I just known.
Thank you guys so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me if you want more videos like this, because I can change my schedule around and make sure that we have more content like this. As always, have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.